Hey, it's Kirk. Today I'm going to highlight the commitments that I made to my business. These are things that I think that add value to clients. It gives you a better understanding or some insight into what's going on in my head when I'm making decisions or advising my clients to move forward or not in the real estate world. Hope you enjoy it, and let's get started. So my goal with this today is to talk about the things that I think that I feel are important in as far as being a real estate agent and being able to deliver value or to do my job, because sometimes people are like, well, what do you do as a real estate agent? And it's not an easy question to answer, right? So that's what I thought. We'd go through a few of the things here, because whether the market is, let's say, a strong seller's market or a strong buyer's market, there's certain skills or personality traits or just ways of doing things that I do that I think are important, and so that's what I want to share. There was a few years ago I wrote down 10 commitments that I make to sort of to myself and to clients, and whether it be in real estate or business in general, even just life. Some of these are life commitments, but I thought I'd go through those today and just talk a little bit about why I do things the way that I do. And these are all, we'll relate it to real estate for the purpose of this video. But I think that it'll help give a better understanding of where I'm coming from. So the first one that I wrote down was that I want to understand the market 10 times better than my competition. So what that means is the more that I know about the market, the more confidence that I have in delivering information, giving recommendations, and speaking with clients. So whether that's, I come to your home and I'm advising you on a price, right? Price on that you're looking to list your house at, or if we're out looking at property and you're asking my opinion of value, or is this price fair? So I feel like if I know the market better than everybody else, then I can speak from a position of confidence in knowing that the information that I'm delivering has value and is accurate, and not just a random opinion that I have just based on a feeling that I have at the time, right? Totally. So what goes into that, and namely is going to be previewing property. I think that in this business, there's no exception for actually going out and looking at properties. And when you've been through a property, you have a much deeper understanding of the value in it and the features and benefits of that property, rather than just seeing it online, seeing some photos, because you don't get the smells through the photos, right? And sometimes there's just some weird things about a house, and it can look really good. And the photos, I mean, everybody says this. The photos either make the property look way better or way worse. They rarely make it look as it is. So going out and previewing property, I think, is very, very important. Just like, for example, yesterday I was in 7 different properties, right? On Thursday, went out on the realtor tour. There was 13 properties there. So just getting out. So I feel like if I'm active in going out and looking at properties on a regular basis, then if you have questions for me, I can answer those, and I'm knowledgeable, right? Versus just seeming lost. I know we've looked at properties in other cities at times and asked the realtor questions, and they're just like, they just get this blank look. They don't know what. They don't know anything about it. So I think trying to be knowledgeable. I mean, it's impossible to go and see every single property, but by going out and viewing property, you can get a very good feel for what the market is, as well as viewing the market stats. So looking at the sales numbers versus the listings, months of inventory, list to price ratios, those types of things are, so just to judge and give a quick snapshot of whether, based on that information, am I anticipating prices to be going up or down or staying flat, right? So if we're negotiating, we're trying to figure out, well, does it make more sense to just buy now and pay the price because it's likely going to be higher if we wait longer, or the opposite of that? So again, that just comes down to understanding the market. So the next commitment goes towards being more skilled than the people that I compete against. And I think that maybe saying it that way is not always accurate, because we're not always competing against someone, but when a seller is making a decision to hire an agent to list their homes, they have other choices, right? And so I'm saying that they're my competition. So if I want somebody to choose me, I want them to be confident in my abilities. So on the skill side of being successful at selling real estate and getting paid to do that, I think that one of the skills that we're most highly paid for is the ability to have those uncomfortable business conversations. And whether it's asking a seller directly the reasons for selling, digging into the real reasons of why they're selling, or same thing for buyers, and really finding out what's important. Those uncomfortable conversations are not always fun to have, but they're necessary. And so I'm not afraid to ask those questions, dig deep, get into it. I always find that the sooner that we deal with that, or information is shared, then we can move forward, right? And that's really a life skill, not even just a real estate skill, but it specifically relates to real estate, because sometimes you can feel that there's a lingering reason or something holding someone back, and I'll just stop and just say what's going on here? Why are you having a challenge making this decision or moving forward? Talk about it and then take the next steps, right? Because sometimes it is, and I get this feeling a lot with sellers, is especially elderly sellers, maybe they've lost their spouse or their partner, and now they're by themselves. They're really comfortable in their home. They really need to be moving somewhere, but they're afraid. And so or their family is pressuring them to sell. And so one of this is a classic from a seller in this position, is, okay, I'll put my house for sale, but I'll put it at a price that it's not going to sell. So my family will be happy that I have it for sale and I'm taking the steps forward, but it's really realistically not going to sell. So we'll dig into those, those reasons of why actually having it for sale is a benefit to move forward. And a lot of times it's really finding the next step. If a seller knows where they're going to next, or they're excited about that, or there's some positives to come from that, it's a lot easier for them to move forward, right? So the third is to work hard to perfect my presentation skills. I think that is it's communication. So being direct, but also empathetic and sympathetic when it needs to be. So being able to get to the point, and that's one thing for me, and I just personality style, I don't have a problem getting to the point and asking the direct question, but I'll ask it in a way that it's hopefully not offensive and it's compassionate. And so, but I think being able to sit down with the client, a customer, and have a real conversation, deal with what we need to get dealt with. Just the random chit chat, we can do that another time. But I always feel like you've had me over for a reason, or we're meeting for a reason. Let's deal with what we need to deal with, and then move on. I value your time, and so that all comes down to presentation, communication, being a strong, direct communicator, and it's at that point in the process of selling, and especially in the time of negotiating, that's super important. All right. Okay, the next one. And this one's, I always say, the last one was a big one, but the next one, this one. This is the big one. This is the biggest from my experience in dealing with real estate, is versatility. So let me explain what that means. So I want to work daily on my versatility skills so that I can interact with various other personality styles and get them to move forward to where they need to be without it being about me. Right? So and I'm sure you've dealt with this in the past, where you meet somebody and they're trying to change you to be like them. Okay? And if you're already stressed out, so if you're a home seller and there's a lot going on, and you've got some financial stress, or you just change in general, and then you've got a real estate agent that's trying to project themselves onto you to make you see things from their side, I think that can be very difficult. All right, and it adds stress to the process. So for me, I look at it being versatile. So if I can recognize where you're coming from and adapt myself to be more like you, then it will alleviate and calm. You'll be more calm and be able to then it's not a fight between my personality and your personality. And I think once that information was presented to me, I noticed it in a lot of different scenarios. Even if I'm out at a restaurant and ordering dinner from a waitress or a waiter, they'll come up, and if they have versatility, I feel very comfortable and confident. They've adjusted to my style and they make it easy, versus the opposite, right? And we've all seen that. So that, I think, is a definite life skill. But in real estate, it's huge, being versatile. And definitely some agents are stronger as far as being versatile, or being more versatile, and others are not, which they have a lot of conflict and frustration. We hear about that all the time. Now, focusing on the next commitment that I made is to focus dramatically on continuously upgrading the services that I offer. And what I mean by that is, as times change, there's new products, new ways of presenting information, for example, photos, video, different apps that are available out there that we can use. So I want to make sure that I'm using the most effective means to present information and showcase the property in its best light. The tools and the mediums with which we're presenting information has changed. However, the basic fundamentals of what I do is still very similar today to what it was over 20 years ago when I started, right? So, and I think that that's a lot of people, they don't understand, people don't always understand that just because you have the best photos or the best videos or the latest tools and gadgets, that doesn't always relate then back to a successful sale or the highest price, right? So I remember someone I talked to a number of years ago said, well, no amount of marketing can overcome an incorrect price. So if the price is just way too high, we can't market ourselves out of that, right? So that really comes back down to understanding the market first and knowing values. Now, price is somewhat subjective. Sometimes we need to put a price out there and see how the market reacts. But for a lot of properties, though, it is fairly easy to come to a conclusion of an approximate and appropriate range that a property would be priced in. And the market's always speaking back to us, but if you're not, you can choose to listen to that market information or not, right? So if you have people looking, no offers, well, that's telling you something, right? So we don't always want to hear it, especially for a seller, and we're wanting to get that price that we thought we could get. But I think continuously upgrading the services that I offer and making changes, I want to stick with the tried and true that I know works well, but at the same time, I need to be open to bringing in new things, but also not getting lost in the new thing and ignoring the fundamentals that are still there. Okay. All right. The next one is to treat this like a business. So, and what I mean by that is I follow a system. So what I do is very systematic. It's predictable. It's duplicatable. Yes, we make tweaks along the way, but when I come and I meet with you and we're discussing the sale of your home, that conversation that I have with you is, and the process that I go through is very similar to the process that I would have with everybody they sit down and meet with. And what that does, it allows me to be more confident in what I'm speaking about. It allows me to be more efficient, like we stay on track, we follow. And so from the start to finish, there's a plan and a path that we're going down that will create a consistent result. So I think that's really important. And in our business, in the real estate business, it attracts a number of people that are not very business minded, and so that can create some stress and challenges when looking at this. And I think that also as a listing agent, it's much more important to be business focused. I think buyer agent on that side, maybe it's not as important, but on the listing side, I've always looked at the listing agent as the employer within the real estate industry. So the listing agent is like the boss, the employer, and the buyer's agents are more so the employees. Because if the listing agents aren't out getting listings and bringing on new inventory, the buyer's agents don't have a job, right? So you can look at it that way. But also, there's the business of being a listing agent is a much longer term commitment, because I may speak to somebody today that's really not ready to sell for another 18 months, right? So it's a long-term process. And then sometimes once we do get the property listed, it's a long process from start to finish and making adjustments along the way. The next one is also relates back to the business side, but I try to set very high, specific, and strict standards. And what I mean by that is I've set some guidelines in terms of who I will work with. So who I'll work with, the commission that I'll charge, right? And the price that I'll list the property for. So typically when I'm going into a presentation, a listing presentation, speaking with the seller, I'll already know in the back of my mind what's a price that I won't go over. And typically the reason for that is that I'm not doing the seller a service by going to a price that I don't feel the market will bear or that I'm not confident in, okay? So I think that that's important. The same thing with the commission that I charge. I think that there's a certain value that I deliver and I want to get paid for a result. And if I'm going to be compensated at the level that gets me excited to go out and achieve that result, then it's better for all of us.
Yeah.
So people will sometimes focus on that dollar amount of that commission. However, I think you need to really look and understand the value behind it. And the amount of money that a seller is going to walk away with in their pocket is really what's most important. The agent's commission and then what they do to earn that commission should actually boost that bottom line number to the seller.
Right.
And that's how I look at that. So next one, this one's huge too.
Okay.
This one is strictly on communication. So to communicate more to my clients rather than less.
Right.
And I've heard these stories. Oh, we hired an agent, they put up their sign, we never heard from them again.
Right.
So I think that in communication, it's so important. I don't have a problem with picking up the phone and calling you to tell you that nothing's happening, because nothing's happening, but I know that you want to hear from me, right? And there's so many times too where when I'm making those regular calls or just following up with particular clients, that it re-engages me in the property. And sometimes it's like, oh, okay, yeah, well, what can we do? Maybe we can make a change here. Maybe we need to present it in a different way. Maybe we need to have a conversation about the price. And so if I'm regularly communicating with you, or I can ask you questions about, has anything changed on your side?
Right.
Because sometimes we go into the selling of a property with a seller and they've got some time and maybe something's changed on your side. And if we're not communicating regularly, I don't know about that, and you're getting frustrated, right? And I'm not calling you. And so communication is super important. So if you know what's going on my side, I know what's going on your side, then we can make a plan and move forward, right? Much better. And I think that the value that I deliver is through communication. It's better for you to understand that, right? That's a good one. So the last one. So this one, I actually really like this one, and I use this in my life daily. So that is to not operate from a position of lack. So, and what I mean by that is I'm always wanting the deal, but never needing the deal.
Right.
And so we've all been around somebody where they have a need to get something done, and then they come across as being pushy, and it's like their needs are more important than my wants.
Right.
So when I'm working with a client, number one, I need to be okay with not getting a listing, right? If you choose not to work with me, that's okay,
fine.
right?
Yeah.
I don't need it. I want to help you, but if it doesn't work, that's okay. Same thing with the buyer. I don't need this deal to get paid. I want it, right? I want to help you, but if it's not right for you, I'm not going to push. So I think that that's really important, that want versus need. And I found that the position of confidence on the negotiating side, especially in a deal, if I'm sitting there and as soon as you remove that needing versus the the wanting, like I want to make this work, but if it doesn't, that's okay. I just found it so much easier to put deals together from that point and create win-wins where all parties will walk away happy, right? Versus one party feeling like they've just got taken advantage of and not. So we don't want that. So so want the deal, don't need the deal.
Right.
The last one is under promise and over deliver. Okay, so I'll commit to what's doing right and making it right, and I'll commit to doing what I say and following through with that. I find though, sometimes there's certain sellers and buyers where they want to set an expectation from the start that sometimes isn't realistic. And so to make commitments to things that I don't think are manageable or possible or that I'm going to deliver on, I have a really hard time with that. So there's a lot of things that I'll do extra throughout the process, but I won't be telling you about those right up front because I just feel like if your expectations are too high, then there's a greater chance for letdown. And I think just another example in that is even in the way that a property is marketed and presented. So we've all been there where we'll read a property listing or for a certain product. We're interested in a product, we read the reviews, we read the description, and then we get there and we're like, oh, like I thought it would be better, right? So if you're going to use hype, then you need to live up to the hype. And I'm the same way in the commitments that I make. Like I say, I want to underpromise and overdeliver. So I want you to feel like I gave you more rather than leaving you feeling like that your expectation was higher or unrealistic or or frustrated.
Okay.
Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you always have like a baseline of what you're going to do for your clients, and then you try to do a couple extra things so they walk away from it feeling like you've given them more than they thought they were.
Well, and I think it's more so too that I'm not there to over embellish the things that I'm going to do or say that I'm going to do. So I might tell you that here's something that I'm going to do, and then for example, even with some of the, let's just talk about videos or some promotion that we would do for a property, and we'll say, well, we're going to do video marketing for your property. Well, then and I won't get into specifics about what that means, and so hoping that your expectation is exceeded by what we would do, right? So whether that's 1, 2, 3, 4 videos for your property that we're going to send out, versus if I come and tell you that we're going to do 4 or 5 or 6 videos, and then it really turns out that we only needed to do 2 for your particular property, well, then it's going to leave you sitting there feeling like, well, you said you were going to do 4 and you only did 2, or I mean, that's just one simple example. But again, I think that goes back to having a business plan in place and having systems and checklists. And so it's, from my side, I know that when I leave your home and we've discussed the selling, I know everything that I've said. And so, and I didn't miss anything because it's all written down, right? So I'm not telling you one thing and then telling someone else something else. Now, we will custom tailor the marketing plan towards each specific property, but the general process and the flow is always the same. And so, yeah, we list properties on certain days of the week. We have condition removals on other days of the week. So we know, so I know that, okay, well, it's Thursday. This is when we deal with condition removal. We're not dealing with it on Saturday night when people would rather be out having drinks at the lake, right? So just things like that. And over time, I've learned and got advice from other people that in the industry and that. So it's helped a lot.
Do you think that those 10 things or however many, are those all things that you've learned through experience, or did you learn these things from maybe other people mentoring you, or is this from your own experience?
I would say that all of them have come from somebody else. Yeah, I'm not going to take credit for these brainwaves or genius moments. I read a lot. I've been mentored and coached by a lot of great agents over the years, and so most of these do come from other people. However, to implement it and understand it, that comes from personal experience and then tweaking it a bit to my own. But yeah, I think that taking advice from others is one thing, but also a lot of the advice that we get is maybe good for that person, but maybe not good for me.
Yeah, so you have to kind of experience it yourself. And
just the other day I watched a couple different podcasts when I was out for my walk. I was listening. And the first one said, if you want to have more success and get more business, you have to learn to say yes to more things, right? So I was like, okay, I'm going to say yes. Maybe I'm being too closed. I got to say yes. Well, then the next podcast is like the exact opposite. So he's like, if you want to have more success in your business, you need to learn to say no to more things. You're way too full of, if you're saying yes, you're overwhelmed and you can't do anything at a high level. So then I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, which is it, right? Do I need to say yes to more or no to more, right? So it can get very confusing. And over the years, I've gotten advice from different people or agents or mentors, and they say something, and then you put it into practice. It's like, oh, okay, yes, this one works for me, or it doesn't. No. So these are the commitments that they work for me without question. And I think that translates over to a better client experience. At least that's always my goal, is to deliver value to the client. Hey, well, that wraps it up. If you'd like to chat a little bit more about any of this, you can give me a call anytime or go on my website at kirkwalper.com and check it out. Thanks.